Like, this guy's a homeless shelter worker. He's doing his job. NYPD decides to just beat him down. And I mean, really beat him down. Put up the picture full mask. It's an unbelievable but believable story. So in New York, surveillance footage obtained by CBS News New York shows NYPD cops brutally, repeatedly punching Mr. Jason Salters, who was working at a Brooklyn homeless shelter last February. Salters says officers attacked him when he was trying to follow orders to do his job. Now, when you hear what he was trying to do, you will respect this man even more and have even more disdain for the cops. It happened on the 5th of that month. He was working a shift. He's a shift supervisor for the nonprofit hired by the city's Department of Homeless Services. He's working for the government to run the Renaissance Shelter in Crown Heights. Mr. Salters said NYPD officer showed up early in the morning looking for a domestic violence suspect. This isn't new, it happens, right? So they're looking for a domestic violence suspect, and they said he's at the shelter. He says the police did not have a warrant, according to an internal DHS government report. So he did what any good shift supervisor would do. He called the director. He said, "Hello, Madam Director. This is a director of social services for the city of New York." The government director of social services was then placed on speakerphone. Quote, she said in front of the sergeant and officers, quote, "No, Jason, absolutely not. Do not let them in. They do not have a warrant." I said, "No, ma'am, absolutely not. Do not let them in," end quote. He calls her. He does the right thing. "Madam Director, I have police here. They allege that somebody is in the shelter that they suspect of criminal assault, domestic battery. Do they have a warrant, Jason?" "No, ma'am, they don't have a warrant." "You cannot let them in, Jason. You can't do that. It's against the rules, against the policy, it's against their rights. You can easily get a warrant in New York. They have a 24-hour magistrate court. You can actually just email the judge. Hell, you can actually do it via text message in New York. So you mean to tell me you don't have enough evidence to send a text message to one of the judges? You have a 24-hour court system that allows for you to generate warrants 24 hours a damn day, and you rather use all your energy to jump on a man who's doing his job. With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. The DHS report said, quote, while on speakerphone with Mr. Salters and NYPD, the social services director had reiterated that according to DHS policy, the NYPD is not permitted to search the facility for a client if they are not in active pursuit, like a foot chase. But CBS News New York Investigates reviewed other DHS documents that state officers could enter in some circumstances with a document called an investigative card or I-card. The DHS report on the incident shows the officers presented an I-card that morning, but Salters said he'd never heard of that, which is why he called the social services director. Now, I don't want you to get caught up in the weeds here, because the next thing they did throws out any reasonable effort in order to follow the law. Put it up full mass. He offered to go and try to convince the client to come down. He said, "Let me go talk to him. Let me see if he'll just come out." Okay? But the officer said, "No, we will get him." Insisted on entering, even though the director said no. Eventually, one of them got through a door and got closer to the dormitory area. So Salters said he held the door to try to keep the others out, well, basically telling me to step aside. If you don't open this effing door, I'm going to tase you, is what the cop said. Mr. Salters says, and I'm like, whoa, don't tase me. I don't want to be tased for nobody. So he puts his hands up, okay? He puts his hands up. He doesn't want to be harmed by the police. He's working for the government. He's a shift supervisor. After stepping aside, what happened? They didn't come in to get anybody but him at that time. They rushed him. They rushed him. And the two of them started to punch him repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. Two other officers entered the room when the door was open, and eventually all four of them jumped on him, handcuffed him. The DHS report says the officers ambushed Salters, who says he never threatened them. He never fought back. Salters said he was taken to a hospital, and eventually he himself was taken to Central Booking, NYPD, where police told him he was being charged with obstruction of justice and he was being charged with resisting arrest, even though those things never happened. However, the day after he was beaten, Salters said he was suddenly released with no charges. He says he went through a great deal of pain and trauma. He says he went through this pain and trauma. Quote, my anxiety level is on 1,000. I also have some injuries to arms and legs and back, but there's my biggest problem is peace of mind. I don't go outside anymore. A uniform itself brings me back, Salters said. Here's the NYPD chief, Jeffrey B. Maudry, and New York Mayor Eric Adams. The NYPD and the mayor's office would not agree to an interview with CBS News New York or explain why the cops responded in the way they did. The DHS report says after the officers handcuffed Salters, they searched the shelter, and guess what? They found nobody. They did not find the suspect they claimed was in the facility. So the only man they arrested was the one man simply doing his job, protecting and serving. NYPD. The city's lawyer wrote that all of this is really reasonable, justifiable within the scope of their employment because the city did not provide any specifics on what made the officers react that way. So spokespersons for the NYPD, the Department of Homeless Services, and the Department of Social Services say they will not comment on pending litigation, but it's clear, based on what the director said, this never should have happened this way. And I'm glad DHS made sure all of this was part of the record so that we can have the before, during, and after, because you can't depend on the police report to tell you the truth. And so we have a video, we have witnesses, we have the arrest record, and we have the DHS narrative that provides the entire story as to what happened. Hell of a thing. Dear brother, this man simply calls his boss, follows the orders. It's another government agency. This is a government agency against government agency. Police are not above being a governmental agency, and they decide not to operate in a manner that's fair or appropriate or even professional. They do this to people who are serving under the same government umbrella as they are.
I think that Jason Salters colluded with the NYPD to get a settlement payoff for being beat down. There's no way that the NYPD went into this homeless shelter, a government instituted building, knowing that there are all those cameras, as you pointed out, Dr. Richey, did this to a reasonable, respectable citizen and employee of that shelter, and then thought nothing would come of it. They paid out $300 million in lawsuit settlements in 2023. They just wanted to finish 2024 off strong. They were like, Jason, we got you, bro. You're our boy. We'll hook this up. Because there's no way that people are not aware of abuse in this state, especially when it comes to the NYPD and the saunter of cases that they have against them right now. Anyone who thinks the Constitution is a hindrance is a tyrant. We have amendment rights for a reason. And the same people that love their Second Amendment, they also oftentimes forget that the justifications for that Second Amendment are the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and the Fifth Amendment. And those are all to protect the individual from self-incrimination and search and seizures that are illegal. And this is clearly one of those cases. Qualified immunity should not be a factor in this. We should take the time now to realize that we have a problem. The biggest gang in New York City is the NYPD. And we understand that being a police officer is a hard job, but don't make it harder by being a bad police officer.
That's right. If all of those who are pro-cop and pro give police more money, okay, well, we all should agree that this is defunding the police. And I would encourage you to not get upset at someone who says defund the police, and to focus that energy on the cops who defund the actual department by way of this lawless living. And number two, if the cops actually find the person they're looking for, they violated so many constitutional rights to do so, no prosecutor would be able to make a case stick because of the protocol violations of the police. It doesn't help anybody to have bad cops.